Cumbria has always provided inspiration for poets, but Wordsworth's timeless image of daffodils fluttering and dancing in the breeze is a far cry from the much grittier picture of Cumbrian life revealed when the 20th century poet Norman Nicholson wrote about the former Milham ironworks.
For what does it matter if it rains all day? And what's the good of knowing which way the wind is blowing, when whichever way it blows, it's a cold wind now?
It looks a bit like walking on the surface of the moon, because where we are is actually on the remains of the slag ban. When Norman lived here, this would have been growing in size all the time. It would have been glowing red as the spoil was tipped on a regular basis. And now it's barren, it's grey, but it's got a wonderful haunting beauty to it, especially when you look beyond what's left of the detritus from the ironworks, and we can see the beautiful Duddon estuary. And beyond that we can look up the estuary and we can see the hills of the Lake District.
The once thriving Milham Ironworks closed in 1968, devastating the town. The expressiveness of Norman's poetry resonated with what was happening throughout the country. So what did he write about?
It's not poetry which is about dancing daffodils, I have to say.
I wonder, Duddon, if you still remember an oldish man with a nose like a pony's nose, broad bones, legs long and lean, but strong enough to carry him of a hard knot at 70 years of age.
It's more about poetry which extols the virtues of weeds as much as anything else. For example, if we just talk about weeds, he can see that the strength and the durability of weeds, and the fact that they shouldn't just be dismissed simply because they aren't cut up and put in a bouquet in the florist shop.
They don't ask for fertilizer or bits of rag to scare away birds. They come without invitation, and they don't take the hint when you want them to go. Weeds are nobody's guests, more like squatters.
Do you think his work deserves more recognition today?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt. This is a poet who had this wonderful empathy with ordinary people.
Every inland fell is glinting. Black Coombe alone still hides its bald, bleak forehead, balaclavaed out of sight.
He sees things from a different angle, and yet it's a different angle that makes you think, oh yeah, that's right, I never thought of it like that.
Nobbut God. First done, there was silence, and God said, let there be clatter.
A lot of his early poetry was to do with religion. He was very Christian in his outlook. One of the most appealing aspects of Nicholson's religious work is the way he transplanted the Bible stories from the Holy Land to Cumbria. So he writes about Joseph wandering around amongst the allotments.
Congratulations, Herod. You've done better than God. Congratulations, Herod. But when all is done and said, the final sums of history may add up in the red.
You can read into a lot of his work this Christian underlining of what his thoughts are. He's an underdog poet from an underdog town, and as we all know, the underdog will have his day.
Later we'll hear more about Norman Nicholson from one of his most notable admirers, Melvyn Bragg. Up and down the country today, choristers and congregations will have filled their churches with singing. Well, the Reverend Kate Botley is in Norfolk, meeting a lady who's been singing in her church choir for 70 years.
In 1947, a 12-year-old Olwyn Barber joined St Faith's Church Choir. She had no idea that she'd still be singing away in the same choir stall 7 decades later. That makes her one of the UK's longest serving choristers. The church has organised a special service in her honour, and I've been invited to join in and to meet this amazing lady. You've been coming to this church for a long time, haven't you? When did you first start worshipping here?
When I was 5, my mother first brought me, and I went to Sunday school.
How did you end up singing in the choir?
I went along to see the rector, and he told me to go and see the choir master, Mr. Wilkinson. He said yes, and
That was quite a brave thing to do as a 12-year-old, wasn't it? To go and see the vicar and ask if you could be in the choir.
I suppose it was, but I didn't really think of it.
A bit of a quiet revolutionary, Olwyn. That's what you are. Now, I understand at the time there were no other girls in the choir.
No, there was 1 soprano and 2 altos, but we were the first girls. It wasn't usual for choirs to have ladies and girls.
And how was that? What was that like, to be the first girls to sing in the choir?
I think the boys thought it was a bit of a hoot sometimes. But
I first met her when I joined the choir as a schoolboy of 8 years old, and with other choir boys in those days, Olwyn took us under her wing, and we have a joke in our church these days that we would have to obtain a faculty if we wanted to remove her, because she's part of the fixtures and fittings.
I was thrilled to hear that you have now reached 70 years of singing in the...
And what does it mean to you to sing in the choir?
it's so lovely to be able to sing all God's praises, you know, the anthems, and you can feel Him speaking to you through the words and the music. It's very moving at times.
Oh, she's wonderful. She's such an inspiration to us. All those years in one choir, just, you know, what faith in God does that show?
May God continue to bless you in your singing and music making.
How does it feel to have a service dedicated to you?
I'm thrilled about it, to be able to sing some of the hymns that I love. The ones that I've chosen, that Christ is made the sure foundation, loving shepherd of thy sheep, and thine be the glory.
How wonderful. I love that hymn. And why are those special to you?
Well, lo, Jesus meets you, the second verse. And that's what I believe he will do in the end, is be there and greet you. It's something that I would hate not to have any longer. And I'm so grateful that I'm still able to be here and sing God's praises.
And what better way to sing God's praise than with Isaac Watts' wonderful hymn, Sweet is the Work.